watching another 15 Minutes with Marcus. I'm sitting down with one of the top aldermen in the city. His name is Gilbert Villegas. I'm very proud of Gilbert because I watched him come up through state government like me. He was there before me. He was a mentor and he was a strong social advocate. One of the things that Gilbert always did when I was a Dunn fellow starting out in the governor's office, if I had any questions, he would always answer them. He was a champion for the people. He was very compassionate. And when he took the proactive stance to becoming an alderman, I was not surprised that he did such a tremendous job. He's no longer a rookie. He's been here for a while serving his community, his constituent, and he's very plugged into the community. Gilbert, would you mind telling the people a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. Appreciate that, Marcus. As you mentioned, I was in state government for a little under 10 years. I was with the Illinois Department of Transportation when I was a deputy director. I oversaw approximately $2 billion worth of construction work, making sure that minority and women-owned firms were participating on publicly funded contracts. After that, I did a stint with the Hispanic American Construction Industry Association, where I was recruited to be the associate director and run the government affairs for that organization, where we had 300 contractors, as well as architects and engineers. And again, once again, my job there was to make sure that minority firms were participating on publicly funded contracts. I was successful in passing some legislation down in Springfield that allowed for minority firms to participate on projects via the Capital Bill for private, not-for-profit, and public entities. I did that for 3 years, and then as a result of some of the legislation that I passed, I got the attention of the governor at the time, Governor Quinn.
Nice.
Who asked me to come over and do the same thing for him with the Capital Development Board. And at the Capital Development Board, I oversaw, I was the chief of staff there, and I oversaw 150 people, as well as a $25 million operating budget and a $3.9 billion capital program, where once again, my main focus was making sure that minorities and women were participating on publicly funded contracts, because I believe that if you're able to get some of these communities that have high unemployment rates employed, some of the violence goes away.
Wow, yeah, that's very true. And the thing is, one of the reasons that I'm happy to see you as an elected official, and I was in a different role when I was in the state agency. We were both in state agencies. One of the things is you can do good work in all the state agencies, but one of the frustrations is you only it's like you're segmented. You can do a lot of good work, but it's only on certain issues. You were able to touch on many things, specifically contracts and so forth, but you weren't able to deal with like education and crime. And I remember, being an intern, then actually becoming a part of a state agency. I remember you were passionate about those issues. I remember I was with the Illinois Department of Corrections. You always seemed to have an interest with what was going on. So like moving forward, I guess I wanted to kind of transition to education. Mm-hmm. Contracts are definitely important. I feel like we as minorities we collectively miss out. So I'm glad that you bring your knowledge from the state agencies and your other line of work to this alderman. I mean, not to the alderman, to this office. But when it comes to like education, like moving forward, like what are some of the things that you have worked on specifically with elementary education or just higher education in general?
Yeah, so absolutely. So a couple of things. So I'm on the northwest side of the city, and I have 14 schools in my ward. I've got 10 grammar schools and 4 high schools. Mm-hmm. And so as a result, some of the four high schools, what I've done is I've focused on 2 of them specifically to develop curriculum and work with CPS and the Career Technical Education Department to develop curriculum that is preparing young men and women for the jobs of today. And so what I mean by that is, for example, last year, 2 years ago, I was able to bring $12 million to the Prosser Vocational School.
Wow.
Which what we did was I was able to convince at the time Mayor Emanuel to invest in this school. And what we did was we put together a training program for the vocational skills. And the reason why I wanted to have vocational skills at this vocational school is because it's in the name.
Right.
Prosser Vocational School. So we wanted to make sure that there was jobs and opportunities for these young men and women, predominantly of color, since my ward is predominantly minority. So at Prosser Vocational School right now, during the process of completing this project, and once it's done next month, we'll have the ability to train upwards of 150 kids and then introducing them to the building trades, because we have to come to the realization that every kid's not going to go to college, and that's okay. So right now you have the option of kids going to college, kids going to the military like I did, and then coming back and going to school, or kids just entering the workforce. And so if we have kids entering the workforce at minimum wage, it's going to be a long time before they would get a middle class wage. So why not take a look at opportunities that are available now in the form of the building trades and manufacturing, and prepare these kids to once they leave high school, they not want to go on to a different education, prepare them to become a middle class citizen. So that's what we're doing over there. My other school is Steinmetz College Prep. Again, College Prep, it's in the name. Mm-hmm. I've embedded Robert Morris University inside the school. We have a STEAM program, and I also have Wozniak University, WazU, embedded in there as well, to take a look at, again, exposing the kids to the technical side of movies and music, right? A lot of our kids are into music and movies, and so not just being the actor or the singer. What about all the technical stuff that goes around it?
Right.
Being a graphic mixer, being a stage man, all these other jobs that surround it. So that's what we're doing at those two schools specifically. And then with the big project at O'Hare Airport, $8.5 billion, I was able to get the engineering company that's overseeing it to adopt one of my high school's engineering program and kind of provide internships. Once again, exposing these kids to career opportunities that typically you don't see people like us in.
Right, exactly. Wait a minute. So you actually were able to get O'Hare Airport to give internships to the students?
So the engineering company that's overseeing it, mm-hmm. it's a company called Jacobs. They're overseeing the project that's going to be going on at the airport, $8.5 billion worth of construction.
Wow.
They're overseeing this project. They're a project management firm. And so I was able to get them to adopt the engineering class at North Korean High School. And they have some internship opportunities for those kids at the airport.
I just got to tip my hat to you for two reasons. I like when people are able to transition. It appears to me that you were able to take all of your previous experiences and your life experience and put it in this in this office. And I think that's absolutely remarkable. And then two, another thing that I like, and this is something that nobody thinks of, what you're doing is brilliant, it's ingenious, and you're going to go down in history for what you're doing. And this is why I say that. There's a lot of focus on re-entry, meaning when a person goes into a correctional facility, mm-hmm. how do we get them back into the communities to be productive citizens? And that's very, very important. It's invaluable. But what you're doing is you're focusing on that, but you're doing something that a lot of people aren't doing. You're focusing on no entry. How do we stop people from going into correctional facilities in the first place? And I agree with you 100%. That's about providing jobs and letting them see a future, giving them an opportunity to move forward and have things to shoot for where they won't want to be sidetracked and where they won't, actually make bad decisions. So I think that's invaluable. I know you're not going to say which one is more important, but how much time would you say that you put in education? It's like education, it seems like the students. Is that basically like your number one project right now, or goals, or is it just at the top of the list?
It's towards the top of the list. My number one goal is about economic development. Mm-hmm. I want to make sure that, because when you take a look at the stools that surround the Latino community, the African American community, what differentiates our community is that we put immigration upwards in the top 5. But immigration is an issue it has to be dealt with in Washington, D.C. It's not mm-hmm. a local issue that we can resolve. However, we have housing, healthcare, education, and then the fourth stool is economic development. Right. And I argue that with economic development, you can satisfy healthcare, the education component, and the housing component.
Mhm.
And so that's why I focus on economic development, is because I want to provide opportunities for people of color, women, that typically have not had an opportunity, because that provides a quick access to the middle class. And once you're in the middle class, then those other three things that we talked about, education, healthcare, and human service, and healthcare and housing, I mean, we can try to settle those with economic development. Because if I have a pretty good job and I can afford those other three, right, and it gives me some options.
Exactly. Well, I appreciate you. I think a lot of things. So where did you actually grow up?
Yeah, so I grew up humble beginnings. I grew up in the projects,
Which one?
Diversity and Damon,
Okay.
Lathrop Homes, and I was there from 1970 to 1978, and then we upgraded to Humble Park from from the projects. Got to Humble Park, and which is now called Bucktown, North Avenue and Western, in that area.
Okay.
And then we just continued moving west as gentrification became an issue, and then we ended up settling out by Portage Park, which is by my ward right now. So I want people to know that it's not where you start off that dictates where you're going to go. Exactly. That's just a starting point. That's not the end point, right? So I started off in the projects. It doesn't mean that I'm going to be stuck. It means that just where I started.
Right.
And it's going to be incumbent upon you as a person to kind of dictate where you want to go.
Do a lot of students, like, do you mentor a lot of them one-on-one, or I know or like on a group session?
Yeah, so we have, I'm fortunate that I have enough staff now that we're putting together a youth committee, and I have a young lady on my staff who came from a not-for-profit organization that dealt with housing, but since there was so many issues, they were able to put forward a youth committee. And so we work with that youth committee to take a look at what are some of the things that we should be doing as adults,
right,
that could help benefit them as the youth.
Okay, absolutely love it. Well, everyone, that's the end of 15 Minutes with Marcus. As you all know him, you've seen from previous segments, I only pick the top people to be on this show. And as you've listened to everything that the alderman had to say, this is one of the top people from economic development, capital development, anything that you can think of that the people collectively need, he's doing it. As a matter of fact, Gilbert is a lot bigger than the municipal level. We need somebody like this in Washington fighting for the people. You know, I was honored to have you as a mentor. I'm lucky that I actually came behind you, and I'm really ready for this segment to air. We'll probably air this the whole month. Alderman, it was a pleasure sitting down with you. And thank you for the time that you spent with me when I was brand new coming into government.
So yeah, remember, we're not in this for the income, we're in this for the outcome. So.
Oh my God, that's what he said to me when I was an intern, and he meant it. Take it easy.